Good morning. I'm in a very cold Bedford, England, which is just to the east, but it's not of any relevance because I'm with Simon J, who is occasionally Donald Trump, a self-published autobiography author.
It's not self-published. It was just a small independent publisher. Very micro independent publisher. I was asked to have it published. I wouldn't publish it myself. Wouldn't inflict that on anyone. Very sorry.
An all-round brilliant man, Simon J, who's just come back from Australia.
I have, yeah.
It was awful. Truly, it was awful.
No, it was lovely. Well, actually, I left when the big freeze happened, so that was luckily. I missed that. Just
the beasts from the east.
The beasts from the east.
They love always calling it very bizarre things in England, like weather fronts always have to have weird names.
Or like Storm Bertha and Aunt Irma. I can't remember.
Well, that makes sense because, like, in the whole world they name them Earth, but it's always things like beast from the east, the big freeze.
Yeah,
they have things called nor'easter in America.
Nor'easter.
It's a winter storm before Easter. Nor'easter.
Sounds like a woman who'll serve you at Applebee's. That's why.
You're just offending everyone now. You're just for no reason. You're just insulting all of the Americans.
Employees from Applebe's.
All of them in general.
Can't be offended.
All of them in general.
Well, you live in New York, which isn't really America, is it?
Well, it is.
It's an enclave. Don't feel like people who live in New York represent America at large. I have no right to suggest this. I've never been. I've been to Florida, the sex offender capital of America. This is all not going to go in, is it?
It is. No, all of it. Every word of it.
Every word.
Every train crash moment is going to arrive.
Well, it is. That is true. That is true. Florida is the sex offender capital of America, and it's weird because it's near Disneyland. So
is it weird or is it by intention?
Almost like
is it by design? Literally by design.
Yeah. No,
so,
okay.
Talk to me a bit about like touring as Donald Trump in Australia. How does it play out? Like, because obviously everyone's aware that Donald Trump is the president of the United States, but in Australia, I just wouldn't imagine anyone would care.
Well, that's very true because they don't get anywhere near as much news about Donald Trump in Australia as they do in the rest of English-speaking countries in the world. I don't think they're like.
It's because they're very busy focusing on cheating in cricket. I find.
Yes,
normally.
That's partly that, and I think it's also might be because it's a heavily Murdoch-owned press, but I don't think that's necessarily true because there's the internet. There's just social media. Anyone can get any information that they want. I think it's just. Weirdly, Australia, especially Adelaide, where I was, felt like a weird mix between provincial suburban England and metropolitan intercity America. You know, you have the wide grid system cities, you have loads of commerce, you have loads of infrastructure that's very similar.
Dog's very excited.
The whole time that'll be now.
It's after the
barking.
It's after the ducks.
Oh yeah,
poor ducks. There's also a random dog that appears to have no owner, just urinating by a can. This interview, in case you haven't guessed, is going to be wildly off the cuff and just offhand and probably out of hand.
You put the whole out without any editing?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
God, should have told me that before.
What do you want me to cut it with? Do we just film some close-ups of ducks and
like
just splice it?
Or just really weird close-ups of me drinking the
just your hands doing this around a coffee cup, you know?
Weird. Anyway, I was having a really good spiel as well about
Australia grid
system. Yeah.
Adelaide.
So, so it felt like that. But most of the people I spoke to just knew him as a good businessman who once presented The Apprentice. So
claim to fame.
Yeah. So there wasn't, and I was like, oh, do you not know anything about the fact that he was bankrupt 6 times, or that he ran a casino that went out of business, and one of the people that he worked with ended up dead, cut up in a hotel room, or that he had numerous affairs with his, he left his first wife because of an affair, and then married her, and then left her, and they're not aware of any of this, and I'm like. It's all quite, and I didn't, even before he ran for president, we were sort of aware in Britain of this sort of weird, funny-haired creep, so there's a kind of, me, unbiased. But, so it was very, very strange to get that. So the image was in their minds, but what I was satirising was all new to them. But the great thing about playing Trump is that he's an empty vessel to be filled with whoever's in the room. So being in Adelaide, Trump would just really take the piss out of the politics in South Australia, the cultural identity of the audience, really. So he's a kind of mirror to other people's bigotry.
Do you ever get people that take it very seriously and they come after you after the show, like not in like with pitchforks or anything, but
No.
they have words with you after the show where they're like, I didn't think that was very funny.
No, they say it during the show because it's very interactive. There was a lot of conservative older women that came because they're my kind of audience, middle-aged women, and
wonderful.
Trump said something sort of insult, because he insults everybody. A lot of what I say in the show is verbatim as well, which people don't seem to realise. So I was saying something to a woman. I think she said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Steph." And I said, "What staph? Staph infection?" And I called her a staph infection, and she went, "That's not funny," despite the fact that previously she'd been laughing at kind of, jokes about farts and bums and stuff. So
the highbrow of Sane and Jay's humour range.
Highbrow, it's very highbrow. It's like Aaron Sorkin wrote it. And so she got up. Well, she got up and left. She wanted her friends to leave with her and was like whispering loudly to leave. And then they had to leave and they're like, But yeah, people walk out because they don't want to be picked on, as they see it, for interacting with him. They sometimes really get upset that he highlights prejudices that we all have.
Okay.
That we've all got a little bit of Trump in us. Stormy Daniels.
She had probably all of Trump in her, I'd
still
imagine,
not that
at some
much.
point.
But yeah, and but that's the thing. I'm not. I get a lot of abuse from kind of right-leaning people that think I'm some sort of lefty, wishy-washy liberal who's trying to just, take the piss without really thinking about it. But actually, I try really, really hard to
think about it, because
you're
a lefty, wishy-washy.
I'm
liberal.
a lefty, wishy-washy, so I have to. But the irony is,
but you think about it.
The problem with lefty, wishy-washy liberals is that they do actually almost overzealously make sure that they don't appear as such, whereas the right just say whatever shit comes out of their mouths and don't worry about it. So I have almost worked twice as hard presenting him as he is and reflecting it in the right way, rather than just going for all the easy stuff, which the reason it's different from other embodiments of him is like when you look at the Alec Baldwin one, he sort of portrays him as a kind of dumb surfer dude, that kind of weird thing. Whereas I play him kind of like Dennis Hopper in Blue Velvet, kind of aggressive. There's this such anger. There's a sort of. I always imagine that the way he talks is very strained, almost like he's shitting. So I always this is how I get into the character. I sort of go, like I really. It's like it's just his face, all his facial expressions, almost like he's pushing something out. Like all this point, I don't know what it is, and he's so tight, and he's so. All his body language is always like he's on the defensive, and like he's really just annoyed to be there. I don't want to listen to that. I'm not interested, and it's so different from me because I'm a very awkward person. I'm very, should I sit? Oh, should I do? Oh, you're all right. Oh, I'm very sorry. All that, and he really doesn't care. It's great.
I feel like you've got a lot of license to kind of take it in any direction that you want.
Yeah, well, I'd like to. I had all these ideas of him running like a dating agency was one idea, or becoming a psychiatrist, or.
But he has done most things in real life. I mean, you've had Trump steaks, Trump alcohol. Was it Trump vodka? I think it was in particular.
Yeah, Trump wine,
Trump
water. That's not actually you can't actually drink it. It actually says on it, "Do not consume," because it doesn't pass any FDA testing.
Oh. So I feel like, the Trump dating agency isn't that far. There probably is actually a dating agency that is now.
I think for Trump supporters there was, and no one was on it or something. I can't remember.
It probably has shut down, unfortunately. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Oh, sad.
So what's sort of the next plan now that you've done a massive tour of London and Edinburgh and bits of the UK in between, and now you've done an Australian date. Where's sort of next on the radar?
Well, going back to Edinburgh, I'm so enthused about this. Problem is, when I first did it in 2016, when he was still the nominee, I was the only Trump show on the road, and I sort of got in before the zeitgeist did, and that I felt that was clever. I thought that was a good primer for it. Now it's become a kind of happy albatross around my neck because it's successful, it sells out, people are very engaged with it. But I kind of don't feel very pushed, very creatively
Challenged.
pushed. Don't feel creatively challenged unless
Right.
I up the ante. And the problem is, I'm not. A lot of the stuff that I do isn't commercially viable. And this is now under a London producer who has to market it to a wide audience and make it as accessible as possible. If I had my way, it'd be like kind of, weird, silent, experimental musical, with kind of like flashing lights, me appearing on stage, floating around, with voices, they never let me. But yeah, so it's going back to Edinburgh, but it always updates, so it'll be a brand new show for Edinburgh 2018, and then they're thinking of going to Canada with it, or other places. But one place I can't go is America, because they wouldn't grant a visa for a show that's about Trump, even if it doesn't try and make out that it's anti-Trump. It's just called Trumpageddon, so I mean that is it's giving
kind of a bit negative.
Well, I don't know. He's
Armageddon. I would say Armageddon as a whole is a negative idea or a negative prospect. I don't personally want to be in an Armageddon.
No, nor do I really. But
so if they're like,
that's on the agenda. That's one of the 45th president's hopes, is for a small-scale nuclear war. He said so much himself. So that's the sort of weird thing that I find about the right, which really annoys me, and the left, is that. Right when people go, oh, you're just exaggerating it. We had one comment on the Facebook page that went, oh God, he's putting orange on his face. You wouldn't do that if it was Obama. I'm like, well, no, I wouldn't, because that is his skin colour. This is a tan. But anyway, they don't seem to realise that all I'm doing is reflecting back how he behaves.
Yeah.
So it's just all about context, and you can easily move the context somewhere else. I mean, Roseanne is an ardent Trump supporter, and she does her show about a working class family in America, or underclass family in middle America. It's just come back, and Trump's really excited about this because she's a Trump supporter. But actually, the show is very much about the people in the Rust Belt, which he's hoping to help, but aren't. So actually, the show will then reflect his inability to help these people. Weirdly. So it's a kind of strange thing that even the people that supports of him don't seem to realise their own lot.
So before we did
Trump... too highbrow. Should I just a fart joke now?
No. My audience can handle highbrow. Don't insult them like that.
I'm not insulting them.
They're intelligent.
I'm insulting you.
I mean, that's given. I am not very intelligent. So before Trumpageddon, there was Bastardography.
There was.
Which was a book and a live show.
Yes. It was mainly a book and then very slightly a live show. Yeah.
But there was definitely a live show. You can't be like very slightly, and it was like, no, there was very much a live show.
It was on for a week in Balham, above a pub, yeah. Yeah. It was quite nice because I had this sort of massive sellout with Trump, and thousands and thousands of people saw it, and then I went back to what my usual audience is. It was about 20 people in above a pub late at night, going... You always get that when people look around behind them when they're watching something as an audience. But yeah.
So what made you decide to write the book first?
I was asked to. My friend Martin, who just set up a really small publishing company called Sight Books. Originally he ran one called Mardy Books, and he broke away to have his own company, and he was looking for a variety of stuff as their first tranche of books. And he was on at me to write this book about my experiences growing up, really, because he knew me when I was about 15, 16, because I went to a school that wasn't a mainstream school. It was a kind of like weird individual tuition service, because I had to leave my secondary school. And ever since then, he was always saying, oh, you should write this down, you should write this down. And you always like when people say that, you're like, oh, really? really? Do I have to? And so I did. And
So I did,
and he published it as an ebook, and it went to number one in the Amazon UK bestseller list for gay and lesbian biographies, which actually goes to show you how few there are, because I was topping Gareth Thomas.
Jesus. Well, Gareth Thomas, which no one in America will understand or
He's a
know.
Welsh rugby player that came out later in life. Yeah, he was going to be played by Mickey Rourke in a film.
That's a bizarre little bit of trivia that just kind of...
He bought the rights to his memoir.
Damn.
Yeah. So anyway, so it went to number one, and so I thought that was quite exciting. I didn't believe it. Someone sent me a screen grab and went, "Look, you're number one." And I said, I didn't believe that. Even though I looked, I didn't believe.
This isn't real.
Yeah, but it'd been because it's so easy. I suppose it's so easy to download something if you're on Whispernet on Amazon Prime or something that it can. Yeah, so that was really nice. That was quite heartening because no one had written a book about. Growing up gay in a working class South London estate vibe, and then also quite mental and also quite creative. So it was kind of a unique perspective, really. So that was quite nice. And then it was made into a paperback copy, which wasn't a bestseller. Which wasn't. There's still a dusty copy in a Waterstone somewhere. But yeah, and so it's really just a book about. Being yourself, really. About being yourself, unapologetically, or even if you just don't know how to be anyone else, really.
Well, I was going to say, because you're so very candid with the use of language, and obviously, currently we have a lot of social guidelines in how you should address people and say things and that kind of thing. I mean, arguably turning around and being like, "You're a bit mental, I'm a bit mental," that kind of thing, to some people would be offensive. Where do you draw the line personally in terms of...
I think it's however you describe yourself is fine. If anyone went, "You're being offensive in how you describe yourself," I tell them to fuck off, because I'm allowed to describe myself however I want. What? I'm not allowed to describe myself however I want? I would never describe someone else like that. And if I did and then they go, "I don't like being described like that," I would go, "I'm sorry, I won't ever say it again."
Right.
I'm only speaking for myself.
No, absolutely, but I mean, the language that you use is quite coarse and candid, and that can upset some people, even though
they have to be responsible for their own feelings. I'm not doing it to them intentionally. I mean, I feel, I don't know if I could be coarser. I feel like I'm being quite
very, like I said, candid.
Yeah,
it is what it is, you know.
I would, if I was at a Mind charity dinner, I probably wouldn't describe myself in the same way as a conversation on a park bench in Bedford.
That's very true.
But again, it's about context. But no, I'm very careful with the use of language around other people. I'm very happy to, describe things as how people want when it's on their terms, but when it's on my terms, I think I'm happy to describe my own circumstance any way I want.
Right, which is a sensible. It's fairly
sensible, but
present.
a lot of people don't. A lot of people think that you're somehow not allowed to. That there's no. I don't speak for anyone else than myself. I'm not I'm not. In no way would you see like someone like, for instance, Katie Hopkins. She goes at great pains to describe how other people are, but very rarely herself.
I feel like sometimes she does play the victim. Sometimes when she just talks about herself, because she talks a lot about her epilepsy and
so
which is fine.
She nearly died because of her epilepsy.
Right.
She was practically terminally ill, especially around the time when she was describing
migrants in a boat.
Migrants as cockroaches, and you won't see me crying over dead children on the beach.
Yeah.
So in a way, I guess she was probably thinking, well, I'm not going to be around to receive any abuse from what I'm saying. Oh dear. But then she had a life-saving operation where she had a small portion of her brain removed.
Cut out, yeah. Just wasn't the hateful bit. Are you all right?
No, just had a mild seizure. No, and so, but she, for example, she is someone who does not follow my code of, it's not. She has no.
But she's a public figure though, so it's a bit different. It's not like you're just picking a random person out that you know. She's a public figure that says things.
She's a public figure that's. This isn't getting to sort of Katie Hopkins bashing, which is fine. She's a former contestant on The Apprentice. Yes, that's her.
Yeah.
She has no career, does she?
No, but she's now a public figure In the same way that people that are on Daily Mail's
Same
Essex
way-
are public figures.
Or Jimmy
and
Savile.
He was also a public figure.
Or the guy...
Please don't get my... This video is demonetized at least about 20 times now by the algorithm. You've just hit every keyword to be like, nope, demonetize it. Get it out. Get it out of the advertiser's hands.
Oh, Jesus. No, you can edit a little.
No, I refuse to.
You refuse to edit
I refuse to. Not with you. It's a bit different when you're interviewing other people. But you, people deserve to see...
Tiny temper.
You.
It's just like this is like a hate piece. It's actually like, this is the real... Like, it's going to be on, like, Alex Jones's...
Infowars.
Like, like, this is the real Simon J.
They're just going to, like...
Foul-mouthed, hateful
They're basically going to cut
bastard.
here and then mac a different, like, just like something dead here. Just like a dead child, maybe.
Dead child,
you know? So when you were writing the book, was there any parts of the book where you went, I don't know if I should put this in, or I don't know if I can put this in?
Yeah, well, basically what we were saying about earlier about I can't expose other people's lives, even if they're sort of wrapped up in mine.
Right.
It's not my right to reveal personal information about other people. So I heavily disguised people. So I was in a very, I wouldn't say abusive, but that's quite a loaded word. But I was in a very toxic relationship with this guy once for about 2 years, and there's no reference to who he is in it, apart from the fact that I describe him as a parasite, because he was a parasite. And but there's absolutely there's no way that there's nothing personal about him in it. It's just his behaviour and how it affected me, for instance. Or I've known people that have done outrageous criminal activity, but there's no way of you knowing who it was or in what circumstances that they committed such crimes or whatever. So, there's things like that. There were things I left out about myself to protect my family's feelings, Ben's feelings.
Ben, by the way, is your long-term
long-term
partner.
My long-term partner.
I was going to say boyfriend, but then I thought...
Fiancé, actually, but we've not announced that we're getting married, actually, to our families. So, yeah. Maybe this could be the reveal.
Yeah, if you sit through the first 20 minutes,
no
you get to
one's
like
sitting past the first 20 minutes. It's fine. We're fine.
It's just the hidden bit in the middle. Everyone's like, wait, what?
Easter egg. Yeah. No, it's fine. Well, maybe that'll... Shit, I hope Ben doesn't watch it. Anyway, carry on.
You know he's going to watch it. Everyone we know is going to watch it.
Everyone. It's going to be... It's the Diana Martin Bashir interview, isn't it? There are 3 people in our marriage.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Jesus.
So you left a lot of stuff out for your family's feelings, which was...
Not much. I mean, like, ironically, like, the stuff that I left in, people took objection to. Like Ben said, there's a lot of sex in the book. I thought, there really isn't. There's not enough for my liking. And my mum hasn't read it. She's
because she refuses to, I imagine.
She lived through it, so she's worried that it'll upset her. But she came to see the live show, and she was very tearful, and as was my aunt. So it's kind of hard because I describe, suicide attempts and self-harm and things like that. So I suppose it's very hard going, and I always it was kind of like a weird catharsis, the book, not in a kind of therapeutic for myself, but actually it made me realise how valuable my family are, because they're very dysfunctional, but they're incredibly loving, incredibly supportive, and how would you, if your kid was severely mentally ill, how would you cope with it? So yeah, it was hard going, but I think it a bit like with Trump as well, it would be an insult to people to not represent him as he is, because of the people that have suffered or died because of him and his administration's actions since taking office. And the same with my book, it would be an insult to my story if I left out, how I really felt about things, I guess.
So how do you keep going when it's very difficult to be a comedian and an artist? It's very hard to break through, obviously.
Yeah.
How do you kind of keep going, especially when you've got quite avant-garde performances?
Well, firstly, my self-esteem is not wrapped up in external. What's it called? The external locus of something or other, where a lot of fellow performers that I've worked with and sat around in the green room with, they have brilliant shows, they have brilliant acts, they've toured all over the world. You've never heard of them, none of us have heard of them, but they're brilliant and they sell out and they earn a good living from it. They're miserable because They want to be on the telly. They want the awards. They want this. And it's all wrong because their stuff is great. There are so many, conversely, performers that are not very good and aren't original, have stolen other people's material, whatever, and have got there, and they're miserable as well. So
just being a comedian generally is quite a miserable.
Well, I don't even see myself really as a comedian. I see myself as a performer, satirist that is funny. But also it's because if you say you're a comedian, people say tell us a joke, and I haven't got one handy. But I'm naturally ridiculous. Which is funny, and I do lean towards humour. So I remember reading Stuart Lee's book, which I can't remember the name of. It's like come up at the bottom. I'll text you tonight. Like, it's this. It's how I escaped my almost certain fate. And he'd obviously been successful in the 90s and did a great double act stuff. And then he did a musical called Jerry Springer the Opera. Do you remember that?
I remember that. I got that on DVD when it came out.
And he was sued left, right and centre and lost all his money and had nothing left to show for it. So he started doing stand-up again after years out of the business and playing to 100-seaters. And he thought, if I can get 1,000 regular fans that all, buy my DVDs, go to my shows, that's it. That's my living sorted. And that was an ambition for me. I always thought, actually, it's not about the what people deem success. It's about what you deem success. Having said this, if I got a TV deal tomorrow, I'll be out the door.
So if there's anyone who's looking for,
but no, I do. I'm happy. I'm very happy with performing and doing what I want to do. And if I'm able to be paid for doing it, or break even, or be able to keep solvent, that's enough for me. I don't need someone to say you're this good because of ... because once you get through the door, like I have, like the Trump show did take off and I did get a producer and I did go to one of the big four in Edinburgh and it did go on an international tour, you see that on the other side of the door they're exactly the same people, they're exactly behaving exactly the same way as it did when I was putting the ads in the brochure myself for the show or making my own flyers, or so it's not. The only difference is that they have money and they have influence to put things in the paper, but actually, most of all, I've not changed. My performance hasn't changed, much to many of the reviewers' chagrin. I'm genuinely quite happy to just plough my own road and keep doing it. And because I do have a love of doing stuff, and I've always, I'm always thinking, got such a slate of so many projects that I'll never get them all done. But I'm always like, when I've got a spare couple of months, I'll move on to the next one. I'll do something else. Like now, I'm doing my first art exhibition
called
the Anti-National Portrait Gallery.
It's a very edgy hipster name.
It is, but I'm
edgy.
not a hipster. I do have these glasses, but I don't have. I'm saying this. I'm wearing a two-piece suit and a hoodie. So
tweed suit with I don't know if you can see these.
Doc Martens with Hieronymus Bosch on. So have I accidentally turned into a hipster?
Correct.
Oh shit. But I don't go out to Shoreditch and I don't take loads of Class A drugs. And to
the consolation, I didn't grow out of being like a 14-year-old goth. I'm still wearing a nice.
Don't call me. I'm not a hipster. Do people think I'm a hipster? Is this what's happened?
You are quite hip. Making Trump jokes, wearing tweed suits.
Fuck.
Are there elbow patches? Oh no, you were right.
There's no elbow patches. Oh.
Yeah.
I don't own a vinyl.
Where were you when you realised that you were?
I just have. I don't think I'm a hipster. I don't own a vinyl player. I don't have a Vero account. I mean, I don't.
What the hell is Vero?
It's a new social. Oh shit.
Oh yes, Vero, the Instagram killer that's owned by the Saudi Arabians.
They've done a lot of good things. The Saudis.
They're very busy. Very, very busy.
Theresa May's very good friends. Yeah, I don't think I am a hipster, because to be a hipster, you
have to have like
friends.
A short at the sides haircut with long on top that's usually dyed a different colour.
Yeah.
From a fashion or trendy part of either Scotland or London.
I got this in Sydney.
It sounds like a disease.
Oh God, right.
Sounds like a
I'm going to go and
disease.
burn all my clothes after this. Do you know that? I'm going to go burn all my clothes. I'm going to go back into a shirt and shorts. Shave my head off. Will I not escape it? I'll never escape it now.
No,
They'll
that's
know.
it, you're stuck.
They'll know.
You've been typecast. Congratulations.
No, I don't believe it. I'm not. Well, I think again what I was saying about self-describing. I'm not a hipster because I say I'm not a hipster.
Oh, is that how it works?
A bit like someone in an SS uniform saying, I'm not a Nazi.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's a kind of hipster. Hips, most insulting thing you've ever said.
I'm so sorry.
All the things you've said.
But tell me more about the anti-national National Portrait Gallery.
The Anti-National National Portrait Gallery from hipster Simon J is
The hipster anti-national National Portrait Gallery.
The hipster national. They'll all be around. You know, Oliver with his purple hair and his drain pipe jeans cut to about here.
Oliver.
Tattoo
and
of
very
Frida,
small spectacle rimmed
tattoo of
glasses.
Frida Kahlo on his calf. Oh no. But the thing is, actually, the reason that I'm caught up on the hipster thing is probably I quite like to be a hipster, but I feel like I'm not part of it. I don't feel like I'm part of the crowd. I don't have those kind of friends and connections. I don't have that kind of middle class inquiry. So
you're a working class hipster?
Working class hipster. Yeah, they all say that as well, don't they?
I'm working class.
Yeah.
I'm not a hipster.
I'm the underclass. I'm fighting the patriarchy. Right. Anyway, so your reductive terms. Anyway, so I'm doing a gallery of 29 portraits of internationalists because I play all these characters, play political figures and mock them and satirise them and try to make sense of them. But actually, like you were saying when we were having our breakfast in the car park, that things are taking a downward trend very quickly, and the way we've sort of turned on one another and become more and more divisive and became more and more entrenched in isolationist ways of being, and there's a lot of dangerous stuff about. And it was just my attempt to try and go, actually, not everything's shit. There are nice people in the world. There has been nice people who've said, actually, we can, cooperate and learn from one another and love our cultures and other people's. We don't have to be like this. We don't have to kick the shit out of one another. We don't have to set fire to each other. There are nice things, and that's really what it's celebrating.
So, but it's portraits. 24 portraits.
29
portraits.
Might be 6 by the end. 29 portraits. So they're like people like Carl Sagan, George Orwell, Virginia Woolf, and also people that have sat for me. So my friend Patty, who was from East Germany before the wall came down. And then when she was 11, they took all the history books away and said, you've actually been learning the wrong history. This is the actual history. Jesus. And the wall came down. And she's someone who definitely sees herself as an internationalist because she spent her formative years in a Soviet state which lied to her about the importance of nationalism. So she's going to be an anti-nationalist by default, really. And it's really interesting, because I really wanted some friends of mine and public figures that are still alive to sit for me. And some people won't be drawn on the subject of nationalism, actually. It's really interesting. I like, when you see on Facebook people who think, they seem really kind of open-minded, free-thinking people, and they go, I can see good in both sides. I wouldn't say that I'm an anti-nationalist per se. And you're like, that's really interesting to see that actually people don't reject nationalism, that they do hold on to it. Because I think it depends how you define nationalism.
Exactly what I was going to say. It depends entirely on what your view of nationalism as a whole is. The thing that always confuses me is why everyone has such a bitter hatred towards the royal family, which when it's such a core part of the history of our country, and the amount of money that gets put back into the country via the royal family is almost equal, if not more, than what's taken out by them. Yeah. And I find it very bizarre that everyone, it's almost like it's the cool thing to shriek about how awful the royal family is, and it's like, they're pretty harmless. When you reduce them down to what they actually do,
Yeah.
they're no more antagonistic or caustic than Tara Eccleston and the Eccleston Bernie Eccleston, who's the guy who owns F1, who's very rich, and all those kind of like very high-end elites that we constantly pore over in the news. And I just find it very bizarre that there's such vitriol towards them.
What's very interesting about a constitutional monarchy, I agree with the point of why people are so angry about them as people when it's an institution.
Right.
It's a bit like when people slag off the BBC for being right-wing. You're not slagging off the BBC. The BBC is the institution. You should be slagging off the individuals that work at the BBC that are using the institution in a way for their own ends. And you can say the same about the royal family. The royal family is only as good as the people that are in behind the door,
right.
I guess. And my views on the royal family are twofold. One, my nan, she never said she was a monarchist, but she was, and it was like all sort of Second World War kind of, the Queen Mum would go down the East End and eat whelks with people and stuff. So I had that kind of romanticised view of them, and I don't like when people can't with lazy arguments against things.
Right.
Like you say, like, oh, I hate the royal family because ... money, or ... this, or ... privilege. I think that there are much better arguments against the institution than what is commonly talked about. Yeah.
We've really detracted from what we were
I think it's a good point. I don't. Speaking for all the hipsters,
all the gay hipsters in the London area.
Oh, is it just gay hipsters? Is there?
Well, you can't have all of them. You can only have a very specific
niche. How do I self-describe as gay? Ash. So.
What do you mean?
2009. No, I don't know. Maybe I'm a scoliosexual.
After all of the previous discussions about all of the gay sex you were having, I feel like
not enough gay sex.
Exactly. I feel like I'm not really taking too much of a leap there to be like.
No, only a slight bit of sex. But yeah, royal family. It's one of those things that. What will happen if they did abolish the monarchy? It's a bit like the EU, isn't it? Once you leave, who are they going to blame?
Yep. And now we're here. Who are you
going to blame once the royal family are gone? Yeah.
So, once you've done the International Portrait Gallery, obviously you're moving on to bigger and better things. Where sort of is the end
of that shit that no one's interested in?
I was going to say,
put the Kickstarter up there as well. Not during the royal family bit, but during the International Gallery.
Yeah, because that sounds like you're doing like an abolish the royal family, support this Kickstarter here.
Yeah. You want to see the royal family gone.
No, I was going to say, in terms of what's the dream project? Like, is there a dream project at the end of the road?
I do have dream projects.
Are you too afraid to sort of put them out there?
They just won't. Just no one will fund them. I had a dream project where I wanted to do a parody of Gone with the Wind, where I'd be Scarlett O'Hara, obviously. And I remember writing the first draft of it, and I was telling my mum about it. She's like, "Oh, that sounds terrible. Why are you going to do that?" Which happens a lot when I start my project. But I don't know. That's always in the pipeline. Or I've written full-length plays that aren't just, a fringe. And people talk about fringe as being, it's only fringe, but actually the whole point of the fringe is that you can do a show about Trump when he was the nominee, reflecting it in real time. Now I've become a kind of commodity of Trump, which is probably what he would have liked in the end. It's his aspiration of capitalist culture. I've become part of it. I like doing things that will respond in sort of real time to things that are happening. Right. So actually my dream project is whatever's going to happen next, that I can then go, actually... That's my hipster view.
The hipster news with Simon J. coming soon, 2020.
I think
maybe you should run.
Run for what?
For Parliament.
For Parliament.
I
ran as a Lib Dem councillor once in Bournemouth. Do you know this?
That went well.
Yeah. Well, no. They didn't let me run in the end. They sort of evicted me from the ward before I.
You're a dangerous man, Simon J.
Very dangerous
man.
Views. I was gunning for Nick Clegg, not literally.
Metaphorically.
Metaphorically. I did flirt with him once. Anyway, that's as much as my. Literally, not metaphorically. I literally flirted with Nick Clegg. I did at the Liberal Democrat Party conference. Anyway, I have no political affiliation at the moment, so don't try and draw me.
So running as an independent, 2020,
running
can't wait.
for the my own. Well, there might be election sooner than that. But yeah, I know I wouldn't want. No, I wouldn't want to run. No, I think I'd be like a kind of fish finger candidate, wouldn't I? When the fish finger ran against
and the
Lord Buckethead.
Lord Buckethead.
So one of my favourite. I think that's the one that, you know. If you had to say what do I love about British culture, it's that our incumbent Prime Minister, the First Lord of the Treasury, someone who gives the call to release our nukes from the submarine, had to stand at the count in Maidenhead next to a man with a bucket on his head
called Lord Buckethead.
So she could have just having on her phone saying, that they're about to release some kind of, death for a warning. Lord Buckethead, 312.
And then the eye roll. I enjoyed the eye roll after the announcement where she was like, she was like,
yeah. Well, she was thinking, mate, 25,417. It's never happened. I don't think it's ever happened because actually, legally, she lost her seat. She would should be no one.
Couldn't be president. Not president, prime minister. I spent too much time in America. Anyway, thank you very much for having a chat with me.
Is that it?
I'm sorry.
It's over?
Yeah.
Shit.
What did you...
I don't know what... I should have said something better.
What, like something really profound?
Yeah.
Some really profound moment where you came up with some sort of everlasting nugget of wisdom.
Maybe I should say I've sort of been semi-offensive, so maybe I should just end it with just like shouting loads of slurs into the camera or something, Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, I will be sure to post some links below. People can click and support.
Yes.
You've got Patreon, you've got Kickstarter.
Got it all.
That good stuff.
Got to keep the wall from the door, Ash. got to keep going. Otherwise, I might start thinking about why I'm dressed in a two-piece tweed suit and a hoodie.
Talking to a oversized goth in a Nine Inch Nails t-shirt, leather jacket.
The thing is, though,
Bedford.
If you called me a goth, I think goths are cool. I like goths.
I don't think we are. I don't think we've ever been cool because that's the anti-culture. Anyway, we're gonna fall into some fucking huge rabbit hole. Thank you for talking to me on a very cold bench. I appreciate it.
I really enjoyed it, and we're going to talk more afterwards as well. Where you don't get to be part of that. That's our own lives. You don't get in there. You don't get in here.